HoneyshuckleEX.
I'm Sackbot Barbecue.
And I'm Giggleklutz. And today is a very special episode.
I've been preparing for this for months. Literally months. We're going to be talking about Splatoon lore. And, as you can probably tell from the title, this is not going to be one solid part. There is too much to go over for us to have a single episode on Splatoon lore. But I've been an avid Splatoon fan for 9 years as of this May, and I've been obsessed with this series ever since. And while you two know some of what Splatoon is about, you don't know the full scope and scale of it.
So, join us again for a Shuckle-made PowerPoint presentation.
I mean, legally speaking, it's not a PowerPoint presentation, but whatever.
So, of course, since we're going to be going over Splatoon's lore, there is going to be spoilers. This episode's going to contain spoilers for the first game, which is kind of like the least spoilable one because its plot's pretty simple, but it does have ramifications on stories that come later, so if you wanted to experience it all firsthand, go do that somehow. And with that, I will also talk about how this game, well, it's Nintendo, it's a Nintendo game, and the very first Splatoon was released in 2015. And in case you didn't know, this game franchise shares a lot of developers in common with Animal Crossing. So if you're wondering why you may never have gotten, an Animal Crossing game for the Wii U, I'm sorry, I'm not sorry. With that,
let's get into the thing.
So how this is structured is I've put all the slides into a timeline. So even though some events aren't going to be relevant to, the individual game, I'm kind of cutting them off per game, even if we're going to have some things come up in chronological order.
I'm shaking my head. I'm like, whatever, I'm here for the ride, man.
I'll have to see it before any of that makes sense to me.
Yeah, I did color code the slides, but you'll see what I mean, I guess.
Or it'll just make sense to you and other big-time Splatoon fans, of which I'm not. I'm aware of Splatoon, as in it exists, and it has been in my house for almost a decade.
And you've read some of my Splatoon fanfiction.
Yes, I did. I did. This is a thing that exists. If you bug Shuckle about it, you might get permission to read it. Although, she is hiding her face right now, so I don't know. It wasn't bad when I read it, so...
Yeah, it's just there's a lot of lore things that have changed since the first Splatoon game came out. And,
It's not canon, folks. It's not canon.
It's not canon. Alright, so here we are for a crash course in Splatoon lore.
Woo! Woo!
Humanity's fucked. Nuke Antarctica. What a great idea. During World War V, the rising sea levels threatened humanity's very existence. In the face of many great threats, futile plans were constructed.
Why?
Haha, sea levels go brrr.
Oh no!
Yeah, so humanity literally did nuke Antarctica. We don't know why.
And what does that say?
During the last war, someone from somewhere launched a nuclear warhead into the South Pole.
Okay, there we go. And that's our opener, folks. Woohoo!
Yep, so as of the Splatoon series, all of humanity is dead. But we're gonna need to talk about some of the humans who survived slightly longer than others, such as humanity's greatest mind, the Professor.
Ooh.
The Professor, desperate to help humanity survive, made an AI to store all human knowledge, froze a cat, and then died.
Ah, what accomplishments. So where do these comics come from?
So, some of these are concept art, but they all made it into the first Splatoon art book.
Okay.
So that's how we have access to them. There's a lot of lore that we only get because of the art books.
Okay. Just curious, I knew you didn't draw them. Not that...
No.
What? You draw comics?
I do.
But these are not yours, so I was just wondering where they come from. Okay. And so I was created by a brilliant professor, says the cat that was previously frozen. Yes?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
All right. I guess that's lore things we'll get to.
We'll get to that later. Yeah, on my early slides, I forgot to, put the quotes of the character, who's actually saying them.
Sure.
So on some of the later ones, we have the actual person being quoted.
All right, let's go.
But speaking of the cat, it's Judd!
Hello, Judd.
He's always watching, always judging. He was the professor's pet. He was given an immortality serum. Cryo-slept for 10,000 years. Has the psychic ability to see who's winning a battle at a glance. Also has telepathy. Is the last surviving mammal, *, and might have an appetite for people. They're fish. He's a cat. It's natural.
Yeah.
We kind of, like, see that as kind of like a throwaway gag a lot of the time. Like, he sometimes has fish bones hanging out of his mouth. Yeah, that part of the graph there at the bottom there, it's, there's a giant relationship chart for Splatoon 2, and Judd is shown saying yum to the shrimp person.
Oh, well, sure.
I mean, his name is Krusty Sean. I mean, and
Eleanor Shellstrop gives a high five. Okay, so this is Judd. Judd the cat. Judd.
Yeah. Currently in our timeline, he's still in cryosleep because we also have to talk about another method that humans tried to survive, the Arc Polaris. Let's get biblical.
What?
Cryosleep wasn't enough, so a rocket was fitted with the cryogenic pods and sent into deep space. The Arc Polaris was filled not just with humans, but many forms of mammalian life. But they didn't get very far. Eventually it crashes back into Earth.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. I mean, they tried.
I mean, if I recall correctly, you play Salmon Run on that thing, right?
Yeah, it's a Salmon Run map. We'll get to that.
Oh, okay. All right.
A lot of this stuff is going to seem just completely random, and honestly...
No. You gotta lay out the pieces before you can play the game. Like, any board game geeks know this. I'm not a current board game geek, but I have spent time in board game geekdom.
Very true, very true.
You know, and...
us video gamers are privileged in that we don't have to set up all the pieces. It kind of keeps track of them for you. As long as the game runs, they're all in the box.
Yes. Unless they're DLC. But, you know,
yeah.
Continue.
Alright, so that also leads us to humanity's final plan that we know of, Alterna, the final home for humanity. Mount Fuji erupted, leaving a cavern that turned into an underground dome where the last humans lived. While not the only dome that was constructed, it was the one with the longest survivability. Too bad humans tried to launch a rocket indoors. That one.
No!
They did.
Okay, so... Somebody went a little bananas? I mean...
They went stir crazy.
Ah, okay.
They're like, there has to be something else out there. It's like, no, we've been down here only like one generation. You can't just launch a rocket.
How are you forgetting this guy is fake this early?
Speaking of that fake sky, mind-reading liquid crystals. On sale now.
Oh boy.
Before humans died, they engineered a crystal out of squid fluids. Their words, not mine. These crystals...
I'm sorry. I need a moment to recover from that, because I mean, like, squid fluids was a weird term there, but you adding the caveat made it weirder. Okay.
These crystals could replicate images from human thoughts, and they used this to make a fake sky. Over the decades, this sky absorbed the feelings of nostalgia for surface life and stored it. When the test rocket failed, the crystals leaked into seawater.
Okie dokie then.
I wonder where this could be going.
The ocean?
Hopefully.
So that began the age of the mollusk. We mostly care about cephalopods, but full of crystals, squids and octopuses emerge on the surface and spread across the world. One day, a squid becomes heralded as a prophet, and they create a modern civilization, unknowing it's in humanity's nostalgic image. So basically, inklings and octolings are full of microplastics.
That carry tiny bits of human imagination?
Yes. They have partaken in the nostalgia juice.
How dangerous.
I know, right?
Humanity literally polluted the ocean with their nostalgia.
Yes. See, you're starting to understand.
No. All right.
Yep.
Oh, okie dokie then.
Any questions?
I will just say, it's not exactly a question, but, you know, your warnings going into this for just not being prepared to handle it were completely justified.
I know, right?
And I know you've been aching to be able to explain this to us this whole time. Oh, I'm glad you haven't been alone in it, though, because if the roles were reversed, I may have gone insane, so...
Oh, we haven't even gotten...
Exactly.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
We'll get there.
It's going to take longer if you keep jumping ahead.
Well, but what is an inkling anyway? You're a kid now. You're a squid now. Inklings are carefree, fun-loving, lazy, overconfident squid people. Inklings have two forms, kid and squid. and their skin is thin and permeable to allow for this dramatic transformation. This thin skin covering a liquid body also means foreign liquids can cause their insides to leak and make them burst. It's called a splat. They reform by flying their soul into one of those.
Oh.
Yeah, out-of-body experiences are very regular for Inklings.
They are.
They do that for fun.
Yeah, for fun.
And profit?
Yeah, actually, yeah. Like, no joke. You get paid to do this.
Okie dokie then.
But what about Octolings? Or Octarians? Octolings are smart, music-loving, coordinated, hard-working octopus people. While they share a lot of characteristics with their squid cousins, Octolings are part of a broader family called Octarians, because severed Octoling tentacles can live on their own. Sounds painful, but effective.
Do they have the capacity to reattach again? Or
No.
they live okay? Are they like pets? I mean,
No, definitely not.
They're like soldiers.
Yeah, they're soldiers. You cut off your tentacle, it grows little legs, and then it can fight for you.
And it's loyal to you?
Yeah.
Just checking. I don't know.
Well,
You give them
maybe, I guess there's a little bit more to it. We'll touch on it in a little bit here.
Do they grow back?
Yeah, as far as we can tell, tentacles do keep growing back. Like, in fact, there's a lot of Inkling tentacle styles that involve cutting their tentacles. We have sources that say this is not painful.
Okay.
Like, it's just like getting a haircut.
I wasn't too worried about the pain. I was worried about the overpopulation of your army.
You know, you're kind of right to worry.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Okay.
We'll get to that.
Yeah. Okay.
Again.
Like if every time you got a haircut, you created another little army. Yay! The things we do for style.
The things we do for style. But there are also too many species to cover. Just know that the culture is very diverse, and Inkling and Octoling culture is far from the only one. Here are a bunch of characters I like.
And those are just the ones you like.
Oh, this isn't even all the ones I like.
Oh, jeez.
These are a example portion of ones you like.
Yes.
Yes.
This is not an extensive list.
All right. I see second channel potential.
Potentially. But it's been 10,000 years! Wake up the cat! Your style is as fresh as an old litter box. Using Judd's psychic powers, Turf War takes off and becomes a staple of culture for 2,000 years. All other modes might have come later. We only care about this one anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, so Turf War, in case you don't know, is when you try to have more ground be your color than the other person's. And they literally did do fights like this before Judd came around. They just had no idea who won.
Because they couldn't see it from the sky.
Because they couldn't see it from the sky. And even then, sometimes a glance is just not enough.
You need a specialist, and Judd is that specialist.
Judd is the specialist, yes. And as such, he's been depicted in art that's 2,000 years old, because he's immortal, remember?
Right.
But we also have to talk about power generation, because it's interesting. It really is. When electric catfish, called zapfish, reach 100 years old, they become giants capable of powering entire cities. These are called great zapfish. Fish eggs are used as supplementary power sources, though the extent of this practice is unknown. So those are power eggs that I've shown here, and they come from salmon. We'll get to that.
Right.
But what we do know from this is that people still probably lay clutches of eggs. So there's a lot of eggs, and that means a lot of people.
Because everybody's people now.
From what we can tell, most creatures are people, but we think that there's still some who are more animal.
Okay. But it's all supposition in this universe.
Yeah. Side note, I hope all you folks at home are keeping up with these slides, because I am really enjoying the face that the great zapfish is making at me right now.
The eyes really are going like this, huh?
Folks at home are going to love that visual gag you just did.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a beautiful visual gag. Now we'll play a game of Spot the Streamer. Who's used to being on camera and who's not.
True, I do this all the time.
Only a couple days a week right now, but...
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about the fact that I do gestures with my hands when we're recording this podcast.
Oh, yeah, that... Alright, so then those are like baby people they use for power.
Potentially.
Potentially.
We do have actually a source of, like, an art book talks about a band member for some in-game music. Like, he has 257 siblings. So that's more of this proof that people lay clutches of eggs.
Okay.
So we have no idea how many, like, population numbers look like in this universe. We just know that it's crowded. Also, this is what the world looks like. This is the world of Splatoon. We have two different sections here. On the left is the Splatlands. That is where Inklings and Octolings came from, and then they migrated out to the rest of the world, and that's where Splatoon 3 takes place. But we're going to be focusing on Incadia, which is the area on the right, and that's where Splatoon 1 and 2 take place. It's much greener over in Incadia, a lot more rich, and the Splatlands is mostly like, a desert. This is going to be relevant in just a minute here, because the floods are back! In the Splatlands, 3 tribes use totally cool ninja power to save the day, and are still celebrated for this feat. But meanwhile, in Incadia, the population and the rising sea levels caused tensions between Inklings and Octarians to rise, until an all-out war broke out.
Oh no.
Yeah, conflict.
Makes for good story, not good living.
Yeah, but that brings us to the Great Turf War. The Inklings' most well-known forces are the Squidbeak Splatoon, led by Captain Cuttlefish. Oh, that's why it's called Splatoon!
Yeah?
But the other members that we know of this Splatoon include 2 unnamed Inklings, a horseshoe crab who might not even be able to use ink weapons, and Judd, who's supposed to be an impartial judge. There's no bias at all. But there's another side to this war, of course. DJ Octavio is the one who led the forces of the Octarian army, with a primary focus being his music, though having a bunch of super weapons really helped.
I can imagine.
It tends to do that, yeah.
Yeah.
And of course those have faces, too.
Yeah, so these super weapons, Octarian technology has this fun thing about it, where it uses biotech.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, you put an Octarian into the machine, and it run.
They use biomechanical technology to operate their weapons.
Yeah, so you cut off your tentacle, and you just...
stick it in there, and it uses it as an exoskeleton.
Exactly! You're making a face.
I am making a face.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, when you consider the fact that, technically speaking, all this turf war shenanigans is something the squids and the octopeople are doing with what is essentially their own blood, it's like pretty much anything's on the table after that.
Yeah, I suppose so, isn't it? Just about anything.
Well, it's certainly not mammalian. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, if there's one thing that this does pretty well, I think, is make you go like, right, they don't have the same ethics we do.
No mammal mentality.
No. But the Inklings emerge victorious against all odds. Like, despite the fact that Inklings literally cannot get up early enough to do anything, they win because the great octo-weapons got unplugged. The Octarians retreated, making a new home in more of humanity's ruins, though they never did forget the war. And neither did Captain Cuttlefish. 100 years pass. So, yeah, they go to Octo Canyon and Octo Valley, which, yes, they do look like octopuses, but those, like, craters beneath them, those are, in fact, actual sites of, like, those are actual craters from the Great Turf War, and as far as we can tell, that might have been Inkling-based weaponry from, like, some comics that we've seen that might be from them. We don't know.
Okay.
But Octavio came up with a great plan. DG Octavio's reach did not lessen, even after he suffered great injuries during the war. Rallying the next generation with his music, he planned to steal Inkopolis's great Zapfish to power the great octo-weapons and reclaim Incadia. Or the world. It's foolproof! So he has, like, of course, lots of his minions here. They totally... There's no spies among them at all. No spies.
No spies?
No spies.
Okay.
But Captain Cuttlefish has a plan.
Oh.
Using expert spy tactics to blend in with the Octotroopers, it's his eyes. Cuttlefish prepares a new Squidbeak Splatoon to counter Octavio's cunning plan. He'll just recruit his grandchildren, and he calls them Agent 1 and Agent 2. But there's a problem with that plan, though. Does anybody have any ideas what the problem with that plan might be?
They're busy with stuff?
They are busy because they're the Squid Sisters and they're world famous.
Woohoo! It's hard to be a secret spy when you're world famous.
It really is. It's kind of like maybe eyes might be on you a lot of the time. Their names are Callie and Marie, and I'm sure you guys knew this already, but Callie is the energetic one. She's silly, naive. She's on the left, and then Marie is laid back, sarcastic, and smart, and the one on the right. That's how you tell them apart.
Yeah, that's the only way you would tell them apart. Sure.
After winning a folk singing contest and then releasing City of Colors, the cousins, Callie and Marie, were far too busy to, save the world. They need backup. And that's where you come in. Agent 3!
Oh.
After a long glance around Inkopolis Plaza, Captain Cuttlefish recruited you, now called Agent 3, to save the world. They're uniquely qualified to the job because they love music, have good hygiene, though this is debated, they can hold a gun, and they are playable. Captain sure knows how to pick them, right?
Yeah, it's like, if you have a cause going and you can spot a player character, if you can recruit them, that's going to be a huge advantage.
Yeah, depending. But in this case, yes.
Yeah, that's...
A player character is a powerful ally, I'll put it that way.
True. They may not be ethical, but who cares about ethics in a war, right? Don't you want to win?
I don't want to talk about that right now.
Or maybe ever. Maybe only in lore, okay?
Okay.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I would like that to be in fiction and the past. That's where I would prefer those things stay. War crimes, fiction in the past. That's my take, okay?
I will just want to openly discuss war in the context that I am telling this to my hypothetical grandkids when I need to explain what war even was, because we don't do it anymore.
Oh, I wish.
I just pat his head, because it's like, that's a beautiful sentiment that I don't have any optimism about.
Neither do I.
Okay, I mean, this isn't supposed to be the part that was supposed to give you guys, like, an existential crisis, but...
Oh, don't worry, I'm aware. I mean, I'm aware of the possibility it always exists, especially in a lore discussion that's held you captive for years. Let's go.
Okay. Because now we have to take on Octo Valley.
Ugh.
Agent 3 begins reclaiming Zapfish at a rapid rate, causing DJ Octavio to kidnap Captain Cuttlefish. This causes Agents 1 and 2 to finally take the situation seriously and come to help. So, for the record, our current hostages are an electric fish and an old man.
Very old man, right?
Very old man. He's 130.
Okay.
Yeah, he was there before 100-year time gap.
Yeah.
The current hostages, electric fish and old man. Okay.
Yeah. And I included a running joke on the side there. Agent 1 always holds the communicator upside down.
So this makes the audio come through upside down somehow.
Yep. Don't pretend to understand it. It's a silly game for kids, remember?
It's also a lot of other stuff, mind you. As you have already proven and will continue to do so for the rest of this presentation.
It's a game for kids.
I have a funny feeling it's a game that includes kids. But, that's a clever distinction that I'm sure will be defined in time.
In time? Well, we might as well just keep going. Because now we've got to confront the Octobot King. That's the name of the machine.
Oh,
Not
okay.
the guy. Because that's DJ Octavio. Upon approaching the top of the valley, DJ Octavio uses the Great Zapfish to power up his Octo-Weapon/DJ setup. The fight is long, and DJ Octavio is blasting wasabi beats the entire time. Yes, he does use wasabi to turn his turntables. Like, he was originally just supposed to be an old guy grinding up wasabi when the game was about rabbits.
The game was about rabbits at one point.
Yes. This game went through so much.
Yeah, it's like,
I'm going through so much.
it's like it was about rabbits between when it was about tofu and when it was finally about squids, if I recall.
Well, it was also about Mario at one point.
Oh yeah, I forgot about Mario. How could you forget Mario?
Okay. Do you want me to be able to focus on the presentation?
Sorry, none of that's canon anymore.
But in the final stretch, Agents 1 and 2 reveal their true identities and play the greatest song ever made, according to lore. And that song is Calamari Incantation. That heavenly melody. The chorus of Calamari County is a folk song said to be carved into the very DNA of Inklings. It is a customary song sung to thank the sea for its bounty. This song was then remixed and sung by the Squid Sisters in a techno genre, giving the song incredibly powerful and possibly magical qualities, including, but not limited to, making people dance, undoing propaganda, breaking brainwashing, making Honeyshuckle play Splatoon in the first place, and creating Redacted.
Ooh, it can be used to redact things. That sounds useful.
We'll touch on that topic later. But yes, this song is what made me play Splatoon in the first place. I heard this song, and I was like, I need to play that game.
There we go.
Yep.
The power of music.
Yeah, so I did download this song if we want to listen to it. I don't know how that would affect the recording, though, so I'm a little wary about that.
Okay, so you could probably find it and link it in the description.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so audience, if you want to hear it, link in the description to hear it yourself.
So, notably, with this undoing propaganda point, like, that is how Octavio really controlled his forces. He, like, had propaganda as his music. There's, like, a 5-note sequence that is very prominent in most Octarian songs. Doot, doot, doo, doo, doo. And so that motif carries on through a lot of Octarian-related songs, and it's basically a very short war cry. And, like, it's what helps keep people loyal to him. So, of course, if we kind of have a magical song that inspires, like, freedom and stuff, there might be a bit of an interesting reception in the Octarian forces. Because while the agents take the Zapfish and go home, this fight was taken as the greatest underground show of all time by the Octarians who witnessed it, changing their entire worldview. Marina, DJ Octavio's right hand, went so far as to leave Octarian territory and began to make a trip to Inkopolis, but was stopped by a scream on Mount Nantai, which is a real mountain that does exist. It's shorter now. We assume it's because of how high the seas have risen, but at the same time, that's a lot for the sea to have risen, so we're kind of left a little bit confused as to how exactly it got that short, but...
Yeah, it's a post-apocalyptic future populated by, squid and octopus people who are basically made out of their own ink. There are some mysteries we will never solve.
Very true, very true. Well said. But, where did the scream come from? Well, enter Pearl Huzuki! If you try Splat Marina, I will cut a fish! See, I sourced this one.
Yeah, you did.
The scream came from Pearl, an inkling whose voice is so powerful that it can break sound equipment. She was training on Mount Nantai to try to fully master her voice so she could pursue a music career. Marina impresses Pearl with her own music, creating a backing track that nullifies Pearl's harmful vocals. Pearl starts a band with her on the spot. Like you do.
Like you do.
So, that is how Off the Hook was formed. They're my favorite ones, okay? Shh, don't tell the other idols. The duo quickly gained popularity, with Marina producing the songs, and Pearl funding the project with her super rich background. Pearl is the aggressive one, she canonically swears, is very short, she has no idea Marina is an octoling, and Marina is reserved and gentle, loves Pearl, is working all the time, and can create just about anything under the sun.
Wow. Little OP, huh?
Oh yeah.
Sounds like they'd really make quite the dynamic duo.
They do. I think this is a good time to, talk about the dynamic between the two in general, because they're not a confirmed couple, is how I'm going to put it. But they may as well be.
So, in other words, they are shipped pretty frequently.
They're shipped pretty frequently. Marina has written an entire manga about how much she loves Pearl, and it's in the style of a romance manga, so they also move in together.
But they're roommates.
This latest performance, their newest song, features a section where Marina puts her hand on Pearl's butt for 10 seconds.
Okay.
If they aren't together, this is the largest queer baiting I've ever seen.
So yes, everyone ships them.
Pretty much everyone ships them, yes.
And it sounds like it's invited as well, so there we go.
Yeah.
So anyway.
But in the wake of Pearl's desertion, I wouldn't say they were angry, more like shocked. Sourced Oct. More Octolings besides Marina leave, and DJ Octavio begins to scheme about how to escape his snow globe prison and keep his army intact. What are kids these days into? Marina's friend and fellow DJ Oct remains and begins to withdraw into the deepest parts of Octo Canyon, and they vanish under mysterious circumstances.
Bum, bum, bum.
Yeah, that's never good. Like, if you vanish, you want it to be, and was promptly found with donuts, right? You don't want to be, like, vanish under mysterious circumstances. Like...
And was never heard from again.
Okay, you're right, that's even worse.
Yep.
Because, I mean, if I bring them up, you know they're gonna come up again. So it's not the worst case scenario, I guess.
Maybe we'll have to see.
It's not like it's color-coded for a different story or anything. But wait, we haven't talked about Splatfest yet.
Oh yeah, Splatfest. How could I forget Splatfest?
Signals from the time of humanity bounce off a satellite or planet and return to Earth 12,000 years after they were sent. These messages are interpreted as divine questions from God. These questions are important ones, such as, what's better, a pirate or a ninja? What came first, the chicken or the egg? Or what's the best type of starter Pokemon?
These are all very good and thought-provoking questions.
Equally important.
Sure, yeah.
So, yeah, that's how they explain how our Splatfest announcements make it to the world of Splatoon. So, they tweet out the theme, and it's sent into space.
Okay.
And it comes back in the distant future, and then...
From a fax machine, yes.
I was gonna say, that does look vaguely fax machine. Either that or it's alive and it eats paper.
Well,
you know, sure.
In Japanese, it is called kami-sama, which basically is a pun on paper god. So, yeah, this is the paper god.
Okay.
But Splatfests, they have their own law structure. So turf wars are fought over the topic for 1 to 3 days. The winning team is then legally declared better than the other team, even if Inklings have no idea what the thing is, like Nike shoes or Pokemon. Splatfest law also decrees that you cannot complain about losing a Splatfest, so it's simple, right?
I don't know, are Inklings anything like people? Because people gonna bitch no matter what, so...
Yeah, true. So the Splatfest law is something that kind of comes up occasionally, but doesn't really have, like, any big ramifications unless it's, like, the final Splatfest of a game. Like, for our next problem, which idol is better, Callie or Marie?
My answer to that is yes.
That would be the correct answer, because it's kind of cruel for God to pit you against your cousin for all the world to see.
I didn't think about that fact, because I knew this was the last Splatfest, but it's like they get those messages from the future.
From the past, you mean?
Yeah, from the past. Things that end up being Deus messages in the future, and it specifically references those two.
Yeah.
What's the deal with that? I
can't imagine, like, how I would feel if God specifically called me out like this. But this drove a wedge between the two cousins, because of course, why wouldn't it? I knew this day would come, says Callie. Team Marie won the Splatfest, though, which rocketed the idol to an international stage and opened up both idols to solo careers. While neither side bore ill will to one another, they still grew distant. Before long, the Squid sisters stopped performing together. With Callie working the night shift and Marie working the day, they rarely saw each other, and thus ends the first Splatoon. Okay, any questions?
The answer to that is yes.
Well, I can see what ones I can answer.
I don't have any specific ones necessarily. I mean, this covers the lore of the first game.
The first game, yes. So this is, like, all that happened in it, and, like, while some of these reveals weren't made, like, in that game, they canonically happened during the events of the game.
Right. Like, you're not introduced to Pearl and Marina until the next game.
Yeah.
But their stories began during the timeline of Splatoon 1.
Exactly!
See, I'm savvy like that, and I also know you, and I get your logic, so...
Mm-hmm. One may consider this a more confusing way to put it, but it was definitely easier to put together a slideshow about it.
Yeah.
I wasn't doing it, I'm not gonna complain.
Keeping complicated lore timelines straight in a way that you can explain them is a difficulty I have bumped into as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it took a while. Like, can you believe that originally this presentation was only supposed to be, like, 60 slides?
I have no idea how many have we done so far.
I believe this is something like 39, because I know that we end up at 107, so...
Alright.
I hope you've enjoyed so far, because I think this is a good place to end off our first presentation.
Thank you. Yeah.
It's been fun so far. Among some other things, but, fun is a distinct one.
Like, what vibes do you have right now?
I don't have words for it. I just don't.
That is the experience, though. Like, you just go, how did people come up with this?
Everybody's so creative.
It's like, feels like you say something like, you don't make this up, but it's like, I guess it's more of you don't make this all up at once.
Yeah. It's like, then somebody else walks in the room and says, but what if, like, sure, why not? We can add that too.
It's like, that you just have an idea ping pong going on, and then you end up with Splatoon somehow.
I'm so glad that this series didn't end up being a Mario spin-off. I'm so glad it gets to have its own identity. Like,
Yeah, it's like there's honestly a much smaller chance that this would be something that carried on for a decade if it was, another Mario property.
True.
Probably so. So, this is the end of part 1.
Part 1, yes.
Join us next week for part 2.
And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. And, they might end up being answered. I'm just saying, they might be answered by me. I read the comments section.
Yes.
So thank you guys so much for listening. I've been HoneyshuckleEX.
I'm Zach Bob Barbecue.
And I'm GiggleKlutz. This is Collab Not Multiplayer. Bye!